Hi, everyone. This is Jennifer R. Farmer, also known as the PR Whisperer. And I wanted to record this very short video to speak to the life and the legacy of Dr. Antoinette Candia-Bailey. I was saddened to learn of her passing. She was the Vice President of Student Affairs at Lincoln University. I'll start by extending my deepest condolences to her family, her friends, and her community. She allegedly experienced bullying and harassment at work, and in the end, the pain was just too much to bear. Prior to her passing, Dr. Candia-Bailey penned a heartfelt letter detailing what she had been experiencing at work. Portions of the letter have been released, or perhaps the entire letter has been released to different media outlets. And listening to excerpts from the letter, it's a lot to process and a lot to unpack. For me, one of the most tragic things about Candia-Bailey's passing is that she was suffering, and it doesn't appear that many of her colleagues came to her aid. And yet her friends described her as someone who showed up for others. Her friends said that, or a friend said that when she was talking to her friends, she could always tell if something was wrong. She could tell by their voice if something was wrong. To me, that sounded like Dr. Candia-Bailey was the quote unquote strong friend, or that she was hyper vigilant. Sometimes we hear people saying, oh, check on your strong friends. And that is so, so true, because there are people who live their lives in service of others. And I just think that we should stop more and see if they are okay. Thinking about what she went through at work, I know that this situation probably resonates with a lot of people. Given that we spend a good portion of our lives at work, it's difficult to put into words the impact of a toxic or stressful work environment. And like Candia-Bailey, many Black women have voiced frustration about their treatment at work. There was a study in 2020 by the Gallup Center on Black Voices, and it found that Black women are less likely to feel that they are treated with respect in the workplace. They are also less likely to feel like a valued member of their team and that their coworkers treat everyone fairly. What I just said, I was quoting directly from this report by the Gallup Center on Black Voices. And this perception or this feeling of not being treated fairly, of not receiving the supports that you need, of being harassed at work, this takes a physical and a psychological toll that I think is hard to quantify. I think that some people go in, they turn in, and they kind of shut down. I think some people try to defend themselves. They speak up, they speak up, they speak up. And then I think some people walk away. A lot of people struggle through these kinds of situations, and it's just difficult when you hear about an end like this. What's interesting is that around the same time as that Gallup study in 2020, there was a wave of stories highlighting the growth in businesses led by Black women. It is true that for years, Black women represented the fastest growing demographic of entrepreneurs in the US. But what's interesting is that for many Black women, launching a business was born out of necessity as opposed to an innate entrepreneurial drive. Many Black women felt like they would not receive the coaching, the mentorship, the connections, or the growth opportunities that would allow them to have the upward mobility that they desired, or the financial resources that they desired. I feel like some Black women, felt like, okay, we're not going to have a seat at the table, and so we're going to create our own table. But even when a Black woman leaves the workplace to start her own business, it doesn't mean that her path is obstacle-free. While Black women account for nearly 2.7 million businesses nationwide, Black women experience severe challenges due to the lack of support and access to capital. It's estimated that 61% of Black women self-fund their startups. So while leaving a workplace may offer some relief, there must be deeper societal work to ensure that Black women and all women have what they need to thrive. And if you think about the recent Supreme Court ruling around affirmative action, saying that race could not be considered, and the subsequent lawsuits going after Black venture capitalist firms or Black entities that want to provide space for Black startups and Black work that addresses the Black condition, we're living in a period that's very, very concerning. You know, this issue is very personal to me, and it's personal to a lot of Black women and a lot of women of color. My last book, First and Only, What Black Women Say About Thriving at Work and in Life, it was a byproduct of my own workplace challenges. I wrote the book as a means to process and make sense of a period or a season in my life where I felt like everything was going wrong. It wasn't until I shared the manuscript for that book with an editor and a friend that I learned that my story was, in fact, her story. Up until that point, I felt like there was something inherently wrong with me. And, you know, as I talked to more people about the book, so many Black women said, okay, well, this is my story. So many Black women know what it's like to go from pet to threat. Many know what it's like to be saddled with accusations of having an attitude, being too aggressive, not being nice enough, being too loud, or being too assertive. And in a 2022 interview with CNN's Nikel Terry Ellis, I shared with her that when I see Black women in high-profile positions, I always wonder what it takes to be them. I always wonder if it is as good as it seems. And a lot of times, I don't believe that it is. You can call me cynical, but I think that the higher level that a Black woman achieves, the different struggles that she will experience. And sometimes you may be in certain positions where you can't even talk about it. I think a lot about Vice President Kamala Harris, and I just wonder what her path has been like. Now, certainly we hear about, or we see the way that the media interacts with her differently. And for me, it's all about gender and it's all about race. But putting that for aside, you know, when I see Black women in these high profile positions, I wonder what they're dealing with. And my prayer is also that they have a network of support to hold them up and to tell them, listen, it's not you, it's the environments, to walk with them. I think as a member of a marginalized group, it's easy for Black women and allies to get excited when we see Black women break barriers. But breaking a barrier is not the end of the story. Black women who shatter glass ceilings still need to navigate the new terrain. Additionally, the more visible a Black woman is, the more scrutiny she will face. The more confident she is, the more some will demand her acquiescence. The more she utilizes her voice, the more some people will try to extinguish it. And if you're saying, okay, well, I'll just be quiet. I won't make any waves. I won't ruffle any feathers. That is not a sure path either. Because I think it was Zora Neale Hurston who said, if you are silent with your pain, they will kill you and say that you enjoyed it. So we have to speak up, but we also have to understand that our path may not be problem-free. Until racism, sexism, homophobia, misogyny are uprooted, advancement for Black women at all levels will be fraught. And while we celebrate when we see, you know, women and Black women breaking through the glass ceiling, we also have to stay committed and stay engaged to the women in our lives to help them as they navigate these new spaces. For me, one of the ways that I've processed different struggles at work is to lean into my faith, because I think that the world has so much to say about who Black women are and who Black women are about. But I've had to turn to the Bible and turn to God to get clarity on who I am and what I'm called to do. And I would just encourage all of us, you know, to lean into our faith, but also to know that it's okay to seek help. If you find yourself struggling, or if you get into a season that just feels like it's like all hope is lost, you have to reach out to a therapist, to a trusted friend, to a healer, and say you need help. And there's no shame in asking for help, because there are a lot of people, I think, who would like to step up for us and be with us if we just let them in. It is truly unfortunate that Dr. Candia-Bailey is no longer with us. She deserved so much more than what she got. I pray that her light and her legacy lives on, and that her family and friends find peace and comfort, however that looks in this season. I'm also praying for accountability and for some measure of justice.